I am an addict. It's good to be here tonight. I don't know why I get nervous about this shit. I think about it. When I got here, man, I was a funky donkey. And I don't smell today. And I'm not all green and trembly. And for the most part, my voice doesn't shake when I have something to say. And you guys have seen me through 22 years of highs and lows and indifference. And even if you judged me, you still loved me, And it's kind of funny that maybe it's knowing that there's a fixed date that, I'm going to go talk on a week, on a Sunday or something, that I trip on it. But the absurd thing is, what we have here is our stories. And my story doesn't change, except as moments go by, and as my understanding changes. And what I'm most reminded of is that every one of us in this room is equal. And what makes us equal is that we all share a desire to stop using. And that's where our unity comes from, man. And I needed to remind myself when I started tripping about, what are you going to say, and yada yada, that what I have here is the safest place in the world to be. And there's no reason not to be comfortable and to have fun, because Joe asked me to speak tonight, And it's not about sounding good, because I found out that if I'm bullshitting you guys, I'm losing, man. So the best I can do is just try and show up and be in touch with our unity and with our purpose, our singleness of purpose, which is to stay clean today. And to try and open my heart and tell you guys my experience, strength, and hope, And if you're new here, I want to welcome you. And I suspect that, is there any of the newcomers who hasn't tried to get clean here before? If you're a genuine newcomer, all right, welcome very much, man. You don't ever have to use again, bro. And for those of you who are coming back, welcome back, man. Welcome back. I had a hell of a time getting this program. And I was in and out for quite a while. And we're masters of kicking our own asses. That's what it was like then, and I hate to say it, it's still like that sometimes now, But for me to get this program, I had a hard time. And it wasn't my first experience with recovery. I was in a place called Synanon in '68. And I mention the name not because I endorse it, because I don't, but because it was one of the original drug treatment deals, And I've been knocking on recovery's door for a long time, And I was coming to these meetings when my ass was indeed falling off. And I didn't know how to go on doing what I was doing anymore, man. But I didn't know how to stop or how to change. And you guys kept telling me how grateful you were. Grateful to be clean today. Grateful for your recovery. Grateful for the changes in your lives. And I thought you were full of shit. I just never thought I could have that, man. And I could understand having to clean up, but I could not understand wanting to. I could understand that the wheels had fallen off, man, and that drugs had really stopped working, even though I didn't know that term yet, But what I mean by stopped working is the feelings of euphoria and well-being and peace that were so seductive and truly a miracle for most of my life, man, most of my using life, had fallen by the wayside, man, and that I was stuck in this pattern of self-destruction and addiction that really wasn't doing for me what it once had or what I wanted it to, and I just didn't know how the hell to get out. And you guys said all the answers are in the book. We got this book, man, and get it and read it, and we got these 12 steps, and all the answers are there, except there's one thing that you guys couldn't teach me, and there's one thing that you guys couldn't love me enough to give me, and that was how the hell to surrender. And that's kind of step zero, That's step zero. So what I want to say is that if you be in this room and you be one of us, welcome. And if you're new or if you're old, whatever, man, we got right now and right this moment, and that's as good as it gets for anybody. The past, there's nothing we can do about, and the future doesn't exist. And if we got right this second with a little bit of hope, and if we got right this second clean, man, then we're batting 1,000 and we're doing as good as we can hope to do. What kept killing me in so many ways is that I couldn't get over the concept of addiction being progressive. And it's kind of like we do with relationships. Now, I don't know if any of you, well, that's a lie. Every one of us gets here with big problems in the relationship area, okay? But one thing that happens is no matter how bad it was, once it's gone, man, we want it back, and all we can think about is how good it used to be, And obviously that's the case with drugs. And for me, drugs were a stone miracle. And what they gave me was the illusion of freedom from self. And that's what I wanted, man. What they gave me was the feeling of power and control over my own life. And to me, it was magical and mystical, and you know what? It was spiritual. Because I could take something and feel differently, man. And I could control for once the way I felt. And if I took the right things, man, I had a nice warm glow, and I loved all of you because what you thought didn't even matter anymore. And to me, that's an idea of spiritual fitness today. When I can really love all of you and accept all of you, and what you think really doesn't matter anymore, I'm powerless over you. That's not to say that I don't want to be loved. Because no matter how many times I work the steps or whatever, I believe that in my heart of hearts I want to love and I want to be loved. But what I mean is that your opinion of me is not what defines my well-being, I was a badass junkie and a hope to die dope fiend, and I did armed robberies, but it wasn't always that way. And in the beginning, in what I found as my spiritual solution, I was very into psychedelics, and I started getting high in the 60s, and we smoked pot and we took speed, and my dad was a doctor. And the whole way of thinking of the culture is there's a chemical cure for everything. And that was before they knew amphetamines were bad, and that barbiturates were bad, and that tranquilizers and hypnotics were bad, and doctors were handing out everything like popcorn, And if you wanted to lose weight, here you take some Dexedrine, and if you can't sleep, here you go, you got some Seconal, and if you're too jangly, we got Escatrol. It's a nice mix of an amphetamine and a tranquilizer, And I loved all of that stuff, man. And my dad, God bless him, he was a doctor, and in our house he had a little 13-inch ruler. And it said codeine for the added measure of relief, man. And that's what I did my homework with, and And you know what? I bought it hook, line, and sinker, man. And there was indeed a chemical cure for everything, and everything was me. And as time went on, things stopped working. I'll tell you, the first time I took Perkinans, I got some from my brother. And he says, you know what, Pete, these are really great. I'd stole a bottle from a friend's parents' medicine chest and brought him home to my big brother. His name's Rich. I wanted some approval. We were always a little bit at odds. He goes, man, Percodan, I love these. He goes, here, try a couple. He goes, you know what, it's going to make you sick and you're going to puke, but it's just part of the high, Pete. And that set up a little mind frame for me. That getting sick and puking and having some discomfort, man, hey, I'll blow it off if there's something I'm after. Funny how all that changes when we come in here, though, right? Work the steps, give me a break. Service commitment, give me a break. So my brother Rich, who was always my hero, and I believe was one of us, although I don't think he ever admitted it. Brilliant man, a strange man. And what happened to me is this pursuit of sensitivity and enlightenment, because that was the party line in the 60s. We take LSD, man. It is all about free love. That was before herpes and well before AIDS, you know. I mean, you know, this is all about the marketing and the love-ins and the peace-ins, and this was, man, I was all for it, you know, even though I was young at the time. And I'd shot some dope and I'd shot some coke and done different things, but I was all about living and feeling. And you know what happened is a lot of the acid heads turned into junkies down the road because we became more sensitive and had no capacity to deal with it, maybe. And I got to say right now, everything you hear is my opinion, okay? So, and it's just my opinion. So take it or leave it. I don't speak for Narcotics Anonymous or anybody else. But I'm going to tell you something that was indeed a turning point of my using. I'd been living in Santa Cruz for 5 years, and I'd made a bunch of money dealing, and I was going to go traveling, and came back to LA and was at my parents' house for a little while. And had done some big dope deal, and my brother came. I came home, and I got very much into playing music. And my routine was I'd wake up in the morning and I'd play my horn for a few minutes, and I'd eat breakfast and brush my teeth and play the horn, and I'd go out and come back and play the horn, and I came back from doing this big pot deal or something, and my brother's laying up in my bed, and you know, and he's like high, and he's got some kind of shit-eating grin on his face, and I didn't know what the hell that was about, and I picked up my horn and played for a few minutes, which always drove him crazy. And he goes, man, let's go outside and smoke some of that pot you got. How is it, you know? And we went in the backyard and smoked some pot, and by then my mom was calling us to dinner. Now, Rich was an insidious guy, okay? Brilliant but insidious. And without my knowing it, he had dosed my clarinet reed with a little bit of crystal LSD. And this LSD that I was selling was a gram of acid, which was crystal, that's about the size of a gram of coke, was 1,000 hits of acid. Because 100 micrograms was a good hit. And we'd make window panes, and we'd do different things, but you know, so I had this bottle that was empty, but it had dust in the inside, just a little residue, and the guy had taken the speck and wiped it on my plate. And we go smoke a joint, man, and we're sitting at the dinner table, and I'm starting to melt, you know. And I'm wondering what the hell is going on. I knew the pot wasn't that good, you know. And like, you know, my mom says, pass the cream, and I'm there, the cream, you know. And I see the coffee cup, and I have the white stuff, yeah, you know. And even Rich, I thought, rescued me, and we got out of the house after dinner, and he took me back to his pad. And I'm just about peaking on this acid, which I used to love, okay? And somebody came to his door, and I go, what's that? And he goes, hey, I just copped some heroin. You know, the guy delivered it. And I went from peaking on acid and being open to the universe, and I don't know if you've ever taken it, a little metallic taste, and every cell in my body was wide open, to where we slammed some heroin. And it was like going back into the womb. And my life was never the same. And I lost all desire for psychedelics and open-mindedness. And what I wanted was the warmth, comfort of being in a safe, shut-down place. And I usually don't talk about what it was like, and I usually don't talk about drugs, but I'm here to tell my story, and this indeed is my story. And it's not the kind of shit I would share in a 3 to 5 minute meeting, okay? And my life was different after that. And it's not to say that drugs stopped working right then and there, because I functioned and used narcotics and still believe that God put them on earth for me to cope for many, many years. But there was a decided shift in the way I used and what I was looking for. And what happened is drugs stopped working, and I couldn't accept it or know it. And I used to be able to shoot some dope and sit down and play the saxophone for 5, 6, 8 hours a day, which left in my own devices, I was incapable of having that much discipline, I thought, or sitting still that long. And my music was the driving force in my life, and I'd moved to New York by then and used what I considered functionally for years out there. And a very subtle change happened where the drugs became more important than the music. Now, most people would have considered me an addict well before that point. But in my mind, when the drugs clearly became my number one priority, and more important than the most important thing in my life, there was no going back. And my dreams were coming true, and I was making records, and I was doing tours, and I was getting press, and I was in the Downbeat Critics poll, and I was dying inside. And I couldn't play, and I couldn't function. And I go to Europe and play these huge concert halls and have to run backstage and puke after a solo. And people would come up and tell me how great I sounded, and inside I was dying inside. Because I was shut down and I was worthless. And my passion wasn't the music. And it all became an act. And I used for a long time after that without being able to get clean. And so when I say I struggled to get this program, I came in and out for years. I was in and out of recovery houses. I was in and out of halfway houses. I was in and out of detoxes. And I couldn't get it, man. I just couldn't get it. It's because I knew I needed it, but I never wanted it. And one day I hit a bottom. And it's a funny thing in my recovery, but over and over again, the things I like least and the things I hate most have done the most good for me. And what happened with my bottom is my family had cut me loose over a year before. They'd stopped speaking to me. I was, of course, getting cases and in and out, and I couldn't pay rent, and I'm crashing at friends' houses, and in the end I'm sleeping in my car, and I'm going to court, and I'm strung out on methadone, and I'm still, and as far as, the kind of gangster I was, man, I mean, I was reduced to, we rationalize and we deny. Okay, I was reduced to sticking up the old ladies selling C's candies, because I knew that they weren't going to come out and fucking shoot me. And in the end, I was reduced to sticking up the guy selling oranges on the freeway off-ramp to go try and get a short dog and get my methadone, a little bit of white port, drink my methadone, and figure out what else I could put together for the day. And what happened to me, living in my Pinot, with everything that I owned. And I got to tell you, doing laundry was beyond any of my wildest abilities at that time. Taking a shower was absolutely not a priority. We talk about using and partying. It just wasn't like that, okay? First off, I never knew where the hell I was going to park, so people weren't knocking on my door to come party. Okay? We didn't have cell phones then, so nobody was calling me, right? I couldn't even show up on anybody's house because I'd really burned almost everybody in my life. And I'd been in and out of these rooms and these programs, and my parents had gone far beyond ever trying to help me with any kind of a detox or a recovery house again. And I'd burned most of these places. And it was the beginning of the year, and I parked my car, and I remember driving around in my Pinot, just miserable. And for me, again, I thought, justify, living in my Pinot. Man, I've learned how to sleep sitting up. That's a useful talent, you can do that anywhere, And I didn't even know where the hell to park, and I parked, and I woke up in the morning sick as a dog. And my guts were liquid. And I knew I had to go, and I looked, and there was no place to go. There was no bathroom, no bushes, and I shit myself, ladies and gentlemen. And at that point, it wasn't losing a girlfriend, my parents, or anything else. At that point, what I lost was my dignity. And there was a big shift. There's a little more to the story. My oldest brother, Richard, and I had kind of come to a parting of the ways 2 years before that, over drugs, basically. And his girlfriend had killed herself. And Rich and I had fallen out because I thought he was too selfish and this and that. And he thought I was over the edge and a hopeless, he pitied me and thought I was hopeless and he was controlling his shit. And in the November, my brother Richard shot himself. And it was very much premeditated. And I'd found him twice when we were kids, teenagers, with suicide attempts. And this time I wasn't around. And he had changed the answering machine message on his phone so that it said, "The party you called no longer exists." And he'd written a note. And he took his 2 dogs into his car. And he killed his dogs. And he shot himself. And I'd found out about this. I got out of jail in December, and I found out about it. I was trying to sell some stereo equipment I sold, and the guy goes, "Pete, I'm sorry to hear about your brother." And I knew just what he meant. And of course, I called my family, and I thought, here we go. They got to take me back now. They lost one. They're not going to leave me out here to die. And they said, "Yeah, Rich killed himself. And good luck to you, Pete." And I'm like, "You don't understand. I'm clean. I'm on methadone. I'm doing great." "Yeah, well, good luck to you, Pete." And I'm sitting in my car in my Pinto, and I drove to a Carl's Jr. and went in their bathroom, and I cleaned up as best I could, And I'm sitting back in my car, and I'd been in and out of these rooms, and I couldn't get it. And I was thinking about where to cop and how to get it together to get well. And I did not have the heart or the hustle left to go put it together again. And I knew I couldn't do it anymore. And I thought about shooting myself because I had a gun. And I thought and I had been enamored with death. And most of us, well, I don't know, I can't say most, a lot of us are. The hope to die dope fiends, man, we want a way out of misery. And I thought about my brother Rich, dead, who was never going to talk to anybody again. And I thought about me being dead, and I realized for the first time that I didn't want to die. And I knew I couldn't go on, and I knew at that moment of clarity that I didn't want to die. And for the first time in my life, all I wanted was a place to lay down and be sick with a toilet nearby. A place where I could lay down and kick and get well. And I don't think I've ever kicked on the street before this. And I had a phone number of this guy, Chris, who had told me, "You know what, Pete, if you're ever really serious and you need a place to stay and you're really serious, call me up." And I called this guy up, and it was like the 4th of January. And he's like, "Hey, Pete," I go, "Hey, Chris, you know what, man, I'm hurting, and I think I'm done." And he said, "Come on over." And he wasn't even supposed to be there. He'd gone to Colorado with his girlfriend and had a fight and came home early. And it was an accident. And the guy had this little one-room apartment in Torrance, man. And he had this little cot that you take apart and put back together. And he says, "Welcome, man. You can stay here as long as you need to." And I stayed there and I didn't sleep for weeks. And I kicked. And that was the beginning of my recovery, my true recovery, okay? And what I talk about this for bottom so much is because until the pain I was in was greater than the pain I was trying to run from all those years, I wasn't able to have that psychic shift and really stop and change. The moment I was in that car with no dignity left, all I had was despair, loneliness, self-loathing, desperation, and disgust. And I got to tell you, man, that feeling was deep in my bones and all the way through my gut. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And it's the single most important asset that I had when I got here. And I hope I never forget it. And if you're new and if you're in pain, believe me, man, you ain't the Lone Ranger. And every one of us knows the loneliness, the despair, the self-loathing, and the desperation of other addicts. And I came in, and I was green, and every time I shared for probably 6 months, 8 months, my voice would shake. And it used to embarrass the hell out of me. And I would talk, and my voice was like shaking, and I would shake. And I would blink, and I was just all screwed up. And you guys took me in, and you accepted me. Now, I'd had a sponsor at one time when I was coming in and out, a guy named Freddie Aquino, who died last year clean, 23 years clean. And I'd done the first 3 steps with him. But the thing of it was I was just going through the motions. And it wasn't in the heart, and I didn't really mean it. I just was trying to fit in and be a part of. And if you're new, the language may sound funny, man, and all of this stuff may be a bit foreign. And you know, it ain't no big deal to learn how to fit in here. And people are going to start to know your name, and you'll know theirs, and they're going to slap your back, and you're going to get some hugs, you know, and you're going to fit in how to play the part. But what I want to tell you, man, is remember your pain and make your recovery come as much from the heart as the way you used. Because every one of us, and I don't care what you used or what your bottom was, we were desperados, man. We lived a lie. This life of what I thought was truth and sensitivity and enlightenment, starting with the psychedelics and at peace and nature and free love, man, turned into a world of pain and deceit and deception and living a lie and eventually being so baffled by my own bullshit I didn't know which way was up. So take your time on these steps. And what I mean by that is get a sponsor and get into action, but don't pay them lip service, man. The meetings aren't the program. The steps are the program. And get in and dig in like your life depends on it. It's astounding how to get from the Pinot to where I am today. There's absolutely no way to get from there to here, man. And I could tell you what my life's like today. And you'd be, you know, whatever, I don't know what you would be. But I can tell you that I'm so overpaid and that everything I have has come absolutely, unconditionally from putting NA in my program first. And it's a total mystery. You want magic? Here's magic, you guys. The magic is this room, and when you come in and if you finally surrender and you can put the program first and make staying clean your number one priority, you are going to wind up with a life that's beyond your wildest dreams. You guys I'd hear people talk about being comfortable in my own skin today, man, and I could not conceive of that. I was so squirrely. I couldn't conceive of it. And if we come in and do the steps just one at a time, as numbered, in order, and remember the pain that got us here, and use that as a little something to draw on when we get complacent. And remember why we're here. We're here because one day at a time we have the desire to stop using. But it's easy to lose sight of that, man. What we get here through working the steps is a lot of hope, a lot of freedom. What we get really is finally a manual or a basis to live life on life's terms that none of us ever got when we were growing up, and that they don't teach in schools, and that parents don't know how to give us. What we get here is a way to accept ourselves unconditionally. What we get here is a way to accept our feelings unconditionally. What we get here is a way to turn shit into gold. We get here as a way to turn our pain into love and into freedom. And you know what? This may sound like a bunch of bullshit to you, but I swear I'm being as sincere as I possibly can. And if you don't believe me, think back about the pain that you got here with. And think about the freedom you have right this second. You know, but what we do, man, is we're always hung up on looking at what isn't right instead of what is. That guy Chris who took me in, check it out. Here's a dope fiend for you. Chris takes me in. A couple weeks later, I'm feeling better, you know. Chris, I didn't have any money. I didn't have a job. I had tried stealing in recovery. You know, they used to say, do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Just don't use. That's a crock of shit. Because you never know. Do whatever you want as long as you're willing to pay the price. You know what, man? We don't know what the hell the price is. We do not know what the price tag is. And I knew I couldn't steal and stay clean. And Chris is feeding me, you know. And I'm going to the Alano Club, and I'm eating donuts and whatever, Zuzus and Wham Whams, and drinking their coffee, you know. And I was all sucked up at the time. And Chris, man, he'd go out and he'd go to Carl's Jr. And I remember he came back one day and he had a Western bacon cheeseburger for him and 2 Happy Stars for me. Now, before I got clean, I didn't know what the hell a Western bacon cheeseburger was. But I found out, man, because he had one, and he had the 2 patties and the onion rings, and the onion ring inside it, man, that was sticking, man, the cheese. And this guy gets me the little funky dunky Happy Star. And here I am, man, just 3 weeks down the pike, and I'm already resentful about getting a free meal from a guy who's putting me up where I don't even pay rent. Go figure, man. That's the nature of addiction, right? I've had a couple of really good sponsors here. I don't know how long I'm supposed to talk.
7:50.
Pardon me? Okay. I've had some really good sponsorship here. Freddie sponsored me before I really got clean, and I had 2 sponsors this time, Hank and a guy named Ham. Ham sponsored me through the 8th step, and then he was moving and said I needed to get another sponsor. Because back then we didn't do long-distance sponsorships, you know. And I got this guy Hank to sponsor me. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of value in having a sponsor and sticking with a sponsor and letting them know everything there is to know about you. Ham's my sponsor again. Hank wound up dying in recovery of liver disease, okay? A lot of people didn't like Hank. He was a crusty guy. He did a lot to start the beach areas up in Redondo Beach area. But what Hank and his wife Lily did for me was take me in like family and really show me how to live. And not just how to work the steps, but how to be around them and their kids. And how to start becoming a human being. And Hank showed me how to care for his dad when he brought his dad in as an amends who was really sick with Parkinson's. And I learned how to do things because of my love for Hank, like wipe his dad's ass when Hank wasn't around and he couldn't wipe his own ass. And I got to tell you, that's nothing I dreamed of doing before I got clean. So when I say your life's going to change in ways you never dreamed of, it'll change in many ways, right? But Hank was a very sick man, and he died with about 35, 38 years or something, you know, and I wound up getting Ham to sponsor me again. And these guys took me through the steps hardcore. It was hardcore. And it was all about you work the steps or you die. And you write an inventory, and then I got sent back to write another inventory. You know, and it isn't about answering questions in a book. It's about giving it all up. And we learn here how to feel again. And we learn here that it's safe to feel. And we learn how to be honest with somebody else and get past our own shame and get past our own guilt and get past our own inadequacies and insecurities, because every one of us has them. And that's common ground for us. I want to say that I have a hell of a lot of fun here, man. I fell in love. I learned to love. I raised some kids. I learned to get a job. We laugh a lot, me and my friends. But when it comes to my recovery, I'm serious as a heart attack. And I don't yuck it up a lot in meetings. And I don't really like to co-sign any bullshit when it comes to people working the steps and working the program, you know. And I don't want you to get the idea that I'm into some kind of masochism or something. But what I want to say is that when I came here and did the next indicated step every step of the way, every area of my life, you guys taught me the first step, to surrender. Okay, the spiritual principle of surrender. And I learned that I have to surrender not just to my addiction, but over you guys. And over and over and over again. And I'm powerless over what you think, say, or do. I'm powerless over what you think about me. I'm powerless over what you say about me. I'm powerless over the IRS and George fucking Bush. Okay? And I've learned to apply these steps in every area of my life. You gave me the spiritual principle of hope in the second step. And a way to apply this in my day in and day out, and look and become aware of what the insanity of my thinking is. The insanity of holding on to a resentment because I think it's justified. The insanity of letting shame still run my life. Okay? The insanity of being nervous and scared to come talk to you guys, my family. But the thing of it is those are my feelings. Okay? The third step, coming to believe in a power greater than myself. Turning my will and my life over. You guys taught me commitment. And that's a decision that we don't make once. It's a decision I still make over and over and over and over again. And if you read the basic text, it says something really beautiful in there. It says that, working this step is evidenced by the changes in our life. And it says that the principles that through, what we look for and what we get is patience, tolerance, and a way to be of useful service to others. Man, that covers a whole lot of ground. And the commitment in the third step, and if I'm really doing it, and I want this thing bad because I don't ever want to feel the way I did before, it's really obvious that the next thing to do is the fourth step, because you know what? They're numbered. And if God's will for me, and when all else fails, you guys are my higher power. And God wants me to be free from active addiction. And my higher power wants me to have some peace in my life. And to be comfortable in my own skin and some freedom from this, then that means I surrendered Narcotics Anonymous and I work the program as it's written. Over and over again, I sold myself short. Over and over again, we sell ourselves short. Over and over again, we heap abuse on ourselves that we wouldn't take from anybody else. In recovery and out. We come in here and we get free from active addiction. But we don't know that it's safe to feel. And we don't learn how to feel our feelings. And we think that we better not talk about being angry or depressed, because if we do, man, people are going to think we're not spiritual or we're not working a program. And you know what? Talk about your feelings. And be honest about where the hell you're at. The best thing we got in a meeting is to come in and be current. There's all this canned pitch, man. Well, I want to thank my higher power. I want to welcome the newcomers. I want to congratulate all the people who took chips. All that shit's sincere, man, but when the hell do you talk about you? When do I talk about what's going on in my life and how I work this program and what I'm doing, man? And over again in my life, and in my recovery, it's the things that I hated and dreaded and that kicked my ass that afforded me the most spiritual growth and ultimately the most peace. We don't know what our higher power has in store for us. 22 years down the line, man, I pray and meditate every day just about. I don't know what my higher power has in store for me because I just have a glimmering of his understanding according to the literature. You know what? I'm going to try and make this quick. I married a woman with kids, and I swore I would never do that because I didn't want anybody else's baggage. I married a woman who smoked cigarettes, and after I had quit. And I never wanted to do that because it's a disgusting habit. Okay? Those kids and that woman have opened my heart so much that I can't begin to tell you. And left to my own best thinking, I would have sold myself short. And you know what we do. She isn't fine enough. What are the guys going to think? I don't want her stinking up my car. Oh, the two rugrats, man. I don't want to take that. That's more money out of pocket for me. Forget that. All our fears, all our doubts. And what you guys kept teaching me is, Pete, go for the heart. And I had to do a lot of inventory on relationships and find out what I really wanted. And it wasn't just some good-looking broad, man. I wanted a woman who was honest and had a sense of humor and who was working this program, who had a sponsor, who knew about the tools of recovery, and who was smart, and who could accept me. And when I had all of that, I found out I couldn't throw it away because she still smoked or had a couple kids. And having those kids broke me down, man. And I learned to love in a way that I never dreamed of. And when the little boy died, who was 5 years old, when we hooked up, and 12 years later, it broke my heart. And you guys taught me how to deal with that. And I got to say, when my sponsor Hank died, who was the man who really knew me better than anyone else in the world, one more time, all those feelings that we have of abandonment and grief and pain and loss and powerlessness, all those feelings that no matter what I do, I'm going to lose it in the end. All those feelings of what's the point of caring because, man, I'm going to wind up hurting and in a world of pain later. You guys showed me how to deal with it. And the way to deal with it is through gratitude and surrender. And my sponsor's death and my little boy's death started a process. And it wasn't all about roses, man. It was about a lot of pain and a lot of depression. And at the same time, I was on interferon. And I had gotten employed, just by accident. I'll tell you that story another time. And I did interferon for years because I want to live, and I'm doing the footwork, and I leave the results up to God. And none of the interferons worked for me. And the interferon kicked my ass. But when I got here, I had so much image, and I was so shut down that I didn't know how to feel. And what I've gotten here is layer after layer peeled away. And whatever pain I wind up in, there is a way through. And I've learned how to lean into it with you guys at my side and get to the other side. And I come out of it with a much greater capacity to love. I come out of it with a much greater desire to live today, right this minute, to its absolute fullest. And what that means is surrender and do God's will for me, which is what? Exercise patience and tolerance and be of useful service to others, to help an addict in distress, to be of service in the community. My dad had Alzheimer's, and my mom couldn't care for him. It was breaking her heart, and we moved him down here, and I was able to care for him when he didn't even know who the hell I was. And buying Pampers for my dad broke my heart. But what do? I made amends to the guy 18, 19 years before. And my amends wasn't lip service, I'm sorry. My amends was, you know what? I'm going to really do my best to be the best son I can, to the best of my ability, to be a good son for you. And that meant buying him Pampers and doing all of that. And I was there when he died. And it was a beautiful gift that we get in this program of how to get current from working all the steps, how to open our heart and be current with the people in our lives so that we can tell them exactly what we really have to say right now. Because you know what? All the deaths, man, tell me that right now is all we have. And we put things off thinking we got more time, and all we ever have is right this moment. And through the maintenance steps and really applying myself to 10, 11, and 12 as some discipline, I'm learning through meditation how to process anger. Okay, for the first time in my life, it isn't how not to get angry, because what you guys have given me is to become more human, man. I'm becoming a more complete human. That means I have the entire range of emotions. That doesn't mean I just feel good. But how to deal with loneliness, how to deal with inadequacy, how to deal with anger, and how to accept myself when I fall short, because I am human. And lately, a really big thing for me has been forgiveness. And it's forgiving myself. And it's not always about forgiving myself for something I even know what it is. It's not just about the hurts and the harms. And you know what? It's something. Maybe it's not even forgiveness sometimes. You know what? I was meditating today, and tears came to my eyes. And they do often. The interferon broke me down like a little baby, okay? The interferon, man, I was so jacked up on that stuff, I'd watch TV and cry, okay? I became so emotionally fragile that I cried over everything, man. And on the same other token, I was very quick to anger and all of that. But it was what this addict needed to learn how to feel more deeply and open my heart. And I've learned still to value my tears, man, and not to hide from them, and not to scorn them. Because being able to cry is a huge gift. And I cry sometimes because I can't fathom how the hell I became this person I am today. And my brain still wants to tell me, oh, who you fooling, man? You still bullshit, you know? But in my heart, I know I'm not, man. Because I've been showing up day after day doing the deal. And this is really who I am. And today I am the most loving, compassionate person that I've ever been. And I'm not saying that I'm done. And I'm certainly not saying I'm without character defects or anger or resentment or any of that stuff. But what I'm learning today for the first time, man, is how to accept my feelings and those shortcomings and even love my anger and love my resentments and love my discomfort because they're telling me something. And I don't have to keep running. I don't have to have the TV on 24/7 or be on the phone every minute of the day because I've learned how to be at peace with myself through the 12 steps. And I could never have asked for anything more. And the gifts here are so abundant, man. And if I want to thank you guys for listening to me, and I want to thank you guys for everything you've given me. And thanks again, Joe.
Mine's Rick. I'm an addict. My name's Randy. I'm an addict. Randy. And I'm the treasurer of this meeting. Seventh tradition.